morning, everybody. Welcome to Brookline Interactive Group show dedicated to domestic violence. This is the day after our first snowfall here in Brookline, the beginning of winter, and it's very, very cold. I'm Susan Howards, a local domestic violence attorney here in Brookline. And today we have a really special guest, something a little bit different on this show. We have Lynn Thomas, a workplace consultant who deals with managers, coaches, employees to create a non-toxic, less hostile work environment. Hello, Lynn.
Good morning, Susan. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm very honored.
Could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into being a consultant as to workplace environments?
I started as a tax attorney at Arthur Andersen, then went to Bank of Boston as a private banker, and then was a change agent, and left there when I perceived the organization really didn't care about its employees' health, and started my own company focused on creating wins for employees, for shareholders, and for clients.
The name of your company is?
It's Thomas Consulting, and we've been in business for 33 years. And I'm the only person in the country that's been specialized solely in retention. At times it's client retention, and really now I'm more focused on employee retention. There's a relationship there, but yeah, retention has been what my passion has been about.
Lynn, could you tell us a little bit about the connection between retention and possible hostile work environments or workplace violence? Sure.
I think the best word that's come out from COVID are toxic cultures. And what appears is that most people don't leave vibrant, engaging, optimistic cultures or workplaces. They leave toxic ones. And what seems to have happened is when people were forced home for COVID, many of them realized the conditions they were working under were having a real negative impact on them. And I think it's one of the reasons people don't want to go. Some people don't want to go back in because you do have people constantly interrupting you, maybe not including you on emails, or ignoring you, or making some snide comments, or all of sometimes the misbehavior of people, which was tolerated before COVID because people, I don't think, knew that there was a difference and didn't know the impact it was having. And now that is spilling over, and incivility or just the whole workplace culture is different. And when you throw in, Susan, the millennials and the Gen Zs who aren't as savvy about how to act in the workplace, the intergenerational issues start coming out, which are challenging for anybody to deal with.
So are you busier post-COVID than you were pre-COVID?
I'm probably as busy because I was more focused on client and employee retention, but employee retention now I am quite busy with, and because it's evolving. The whole issue around where employees want to work, some that wanted to work at home are now starting to become a little lonely, and noticing that people who are in the workplace are getting the promotions or the pats on the back than the people who are working remotely. But it's all evolving. And I think each company, and almost down to each person, will have to decide what works for them over time. So to be maximally flexible is really important for companies to do. Everybody, I think, is very heavily stressed after COVID, and things take longer after COVID or during COVID if we're still there. But from where I'm sitting, Susan, nobody ever has a right to be rude and to yell at anybody, raise their voice, talk down to them, exclude them from meetings or emails. All of that will just lead to passive aggressive behavior, or people doing the quiet quitting, which is rampant now, rather than and they're quietly leaving. And that is where we're at now, is you have a lot of people, not so many people leaving, but they're quietly quitting, which means they're doing minimal in their job. They're not engaged. We still have 56% of people not engaged in the work. So we have not created vibrant, engaging, exciting workplaces for people to work in, even with the flexibility around work.
So Lynn, as we go into 2000 today, that at least the Boston schools are desperate for substitute teachers. Are people just not returning to what we, as an older generation, knew as organized workplaces? Are they forming their own companies? How are these people surviving? I don't understand, because I notice, at least in my neighborhood, there are help wanted signs everywhere.
Yes, I think a lot of, well, the millennials, most of the millennials have always had, about a third of the millennials had some sidekick, something they were working on, a side gig. And so many of them have done that. Some people have retired early, and maybe some of them will want to go back. They're called boomerang employees when they come back. So please stay in contact with employees that leave on a good note, and leave a place for them to come back, because it's much easier to have them come back than a brand new employee, because you have to train a brand new employee, and 60% of them, new employees leave within the first 3 months. So if you can get an employee that retired, or a recommendation from someone internally, you'll do much better in the ability to retain them. But you have to really care about the employees.
That's if you're the manager, right?
Yeah, it
Yep.
seems to be the managers that have the brunt of it's on. But a few things. I think managers need to become coaches. I don't think anybody wants to be, quote, managed. And so they need to become coaches, which is a different personality. But to really be focused on the relationship you have with the employees, because you're trying, the purpose. Tom Peters said the purpose of any organization, and especially the leaders, is you want to deliver value to your employees and your clients. And the employees, you want to see them become wildly successful at your company. And what are you doing to add value there? And I don't think managers were ever given the managerial skills they needed. 85% were not trained prior to becoming a manager. And then companies say, our employees are our best assets. It's like, it's like a surgeon, you don't practice on a patient. So I think either start walking their talk or have them
Hopefully,
become coaches.
hopefully, Lynn.
I didn't hear you.
So is there a move to train managers? Is there a move to train managers shift? Because I don't know. I'm on my own business. I have my own law practice.
Yeah.
But I was a school teacher. I was a college professor. I don't want to be managed or coached. I don't want to be anything. I want to do my thing. So how would I fit in the workplace going forward? I don't think I would.
You probably wouldn't, and that's okay. You found your own niche, and for some of us, our own businesses is where we will thrive and survive. But I think coaching is almost like, if you're playing a sport and the coach says, that was really great what you did. They're more like cheerleaders, and they give a little bit of correction. And I think we all have blind spots. And I think I can always help other people. They can help me, be willing to hear feedback back and forth. And that opening has to be there. Else, if somebody, so for yourself, if you were to change jobs and they wanted to have a coach and that wouldn't work for you, it wouldn't be a right fit for you. And there are a lot of people who are like that, and that's fine. And if they're doing stellarly well, they don't need to be coached. But most people need to be in a growth mindset. 50% of what we do now at our jobs, by 2025, we're going to have to upskill those skills. They're rapidly becoming not relevant. I just read that yesterday. So at the pace of change, it's actually going exponentially. It's accelerating. So we need to be on the cutting edge of what's next to get your employees to be on the cutting edge, to be very agile, to be have interpersonal skills, to be innovative. You need to give them some space to make mistakes, if so, but to move at a faster pace and come up with new ideas and better ideas. And in the workplace, that's not been a place where people are willing to make mistakes, because usually it's, they're harshly criticized. And so I think Torch, which is a company a friend of mine works with out in California, they're doing coaching at all levels with companies, from the very entry level all the way up.
Lynn, how does that fit into what I have heard is the corporate bottom line, which translates into profits?
Well,
that's a problem.
Well, but the coaches have to bring in a value. You're absolutely right, Susan. They have to bring in a value where it's more effective, because the performance accelerates. People who are coached, what is this? This latest is about they're about 2 years ahead of their peers in what they
Oh,
want
really?
to do, productivity wise, their knowledge, their experience, because they're being coached, they're being pushed, they're being challenged regularly, and
Mhm.
they're doing well. But if most of us go at our own pace and a corporation doesn't move fast, they're not going to be as productive. They're not going to be as skilled, but people are being coached. It's like someone believes in you, someone's willing, and the company's willing to invest. So it does reflect dramatically in the bottom line. It's a much higher
How are the
bottom line.
coaches trained? How are they trained? Or do they just apply and say, listen, I'm a coach, hire me? How do you become a coach?
Well, do you mean anybody or a manager? Or
I guess anybody. What I'm thinking of is for many years, we used the word mentoring. I just got through with Discovering Justice, which is a fabulous program for middle school students in, at least in Massachusetts, to teach them about the court system, civic responsibility. They
wonderful.
learn how to be attorneys in a trial. And we were called legal mentors. Were we really coaches? Should we have been coaches? See, I don't understand the difference between managing, coaching, and mentoring. And I also see that workplace violence seems to be on the uptick. Is it because there's so much confusion?
And uncertainty, and the
Yes.
economy is definitely kicking in, and mental health. Some companies are addressing that better, wellness. So a mentor is somebody who's there to guide you periodically. So it could be someone outside of where you work. The coach is someone who's really, think of I think of it like a little league, and every time somebody a kid gets up to bat, the coach is looking at him or her and adjusting them a little bit, but they're aware of what they can do. A manager is more, I see, if you're not in participative management, but you're in sort of authoritarian, is you're telling them what to do, which nobody wants to be told what to do.
That's right.
So I think managing the way it's been done in corporations, and why a lot of people left because of their relationship with their manager, because you were one down. You're always being
Mhm.
talked down to. And sometimes you knew more than the manager, you had better skills or whatever, but that was a real rigidity, I think, in corporations. For managers to become like coaches, there are skills out there you can learn. It's more being invested in their growth, being invested in when you see an employee do something they haven't done, be successful, take on additional responsibilities, different tasks, be more proactive, be more willing to go out on a limb to come up with a solution that'll work for the client. But they need some, like guideposts. I almost see like a coach gives you guideposts. A mentor you don't see on a regular basis. And then the other one you said was a manager. Okay, I think I explained them. So mentor,
Yes.
manager, coach. Is that clearer?
Yes, it is much clearer. And what happens, Lynn, in your opinion, when domestic violence spills into the workplace or is a product of the workplace?
Mhm.
Or what I'm thinking of, and this may be a stretch, is what's going on at ABC with the two newscasters who had a relationship, and now everybody seems to have an opinion on that relationship. And it is creating I would say, at least from what the news portrays, a toxic environment for the other newscasters. How do you handle that? This is very public, obviously. It's on ABC. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, no. Well, what I understood initially is there was, quote, nothing they did wrong. It was just a distraction, which I think is what you're saying to the rest of the newsroom, because there was a lot of, or the station, because there are a lot of gossip going around. And gossip
Right.
is a quality of toxic work environments. If you don't have enough formal channels of communication, the employees will create their own, which is gossip. I think that's one, I don't know what they're looking at. They said there's an internal probe. I'll leave it at that because I don't know. I think most companies don't want employees having romantic relationships because it is a distraction even for those two people. But I think when you have domestic violence happening at home, there is no way that a person can go to work if they're a victim, if they're being abused or the abuser, and quote, act functionally. It's just, you're too emotionally
Too upset.
too emotionally driven. If you're sort of
An
the
invested.
abuser or
And yeah.
the perpetrator, upset, angry, why doesn't it's just, how can they become effective at work? They probably can be made more effective, or maybe they're abusive at work too. I remember my career, there's different examples of times when I look back and different times. I'll say my male bosses were inappropriate. You know, one like hit me on the butt with some folders, and he was my first client, and I didn't want to speak up. A part of me was like, I'm not letting this go. And so I turned around and I looked at him, and I'll say his name was Harry. It's like, Harry, don't you ever do that to me again. And he sort of dismissed it. I said, no, look at me. Don't you ever do that to me again.
And did Harry obey?
Oh, Harry became a raving fan, which is one of the things that I've learned when sometimes I've been able to approach bullies, I'll say, on my behalf, and really just tell them to stop, like setting the boundaries for them and being rigid around it. They sometimes will stop. Now, I was a consultant, I'm not an employee of Harry's, but I still work with him, and he sends me business and he'll rave about me. And I think because I got his respect, it's really horrible that you get to be, well, this situation, you know, hitting me on the butt with some folders, a form of sexual harassment. It had to go to that. And for me, in front of all of his employees, because that's where he chose to act out, to put a stop to it. And they were all surprised I did. But, you know, I was starting my company. I wasn't going to take any type of inappropriate behavior towards me, or even I saw it towards somebody else when I was there. But it takes strength. It takes, you know, so there's people being passive and aggressive. I talk about being assertive, which is in the middle. Assertive is standing up for what I know to be right or my boundaries, and stating it with clarity, with kindness, with firmness, and being absolute about it.
Lynn, the operative word is boundaries. We all have to, number one, have boundaries, recognize our boundaries, and use our boundaries in a positive way. We're talking to Lynn Thomas, a workplace consultant. Lynn, how would people get in touch with you? We just have a few seconds left.
Sure.
If they wanted help, if they're an employee, if they're a coach, if they're a manager, if they're just somebody like me, an independent outlier, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure, thanks. My company's name is Thomas Consulting. So Thomas Consulting at the end, wins.com is the website. And my name in front of that, Lynn Thomas at Thomas Consulting Wins, is email. And phone, if you prefer that, 781-899-4210. I'm always happy to help people. If it's a short conversation, I'm happy to do it at no cost. And I'd rather you call than put up with situations that are not appropriate.
Lynn Thomas, where is your office? Where are you located again?
We're in Newton, Massachusetts.
Okay, thank you again, Lynn Thomas, workplace consultant, domestic violence, toxic workplaces. This is Brookline Interactive Group show dedicated to domestic violence. Thank you all, and Lynn, we wish you a very, very safe holiday, and everybody else too. Thank you so much.
Same to you, Susan. Thank you so much.